My husband begged me for cash under the guise of a Guise trip, but I uncovered the truth, that he was whisking his girlfriend away on a lavish romantic getaway. So I booked a last-minute flight, crashed their fancy dinner, and served him divorce papers in front of every shocked onlooker. My husband, Eric, lost his job about 8 months ago, and it's been incredibly difficult. I've been shouldering all our finances while he supposedly searches for work. Now, I'm questioning what he was actually doing with his time. I work in marketing for a tech company and earn a decent income, enough to keep us afloat while he figures things out. I was patient, understanding that job loss affects confidence, but 8 months felt like a long time. My frustration grew daily as I'd come home and ask about his job search, only to receive vague responses about applications, networking, and leads that never materialized. 3 weeks ago, he excitedly told me about a guy's trip to Vegas with his college friends, suggesting it would be good for him to get away and clear his head. He even mentioned one of his friends now worked in recruiting and could potentially help him. I thought, okay, maybe this is what he needs, a change of scenery and some motivation, because his moping around the house for months had been driving me crazy. He estimated the trip would cost around $1,500 for flights, hotel, and food. I did a quick mental budget check, deciding we could manage it if it meant he'd return motivated to find a job. I transferred the money to his account, told him to have fun, and hoped he'd come back with job prospects. He was incredibly grateful, kissed me, and promised to turn things around. As I helped him pack, something I always do for his trips, I found a very expensive Hugo Boss suit in his suitcase that I'd never seen before. I knew for a fact we hadn't bought new suits recently due to our tight finances, and this one likely cost at least $600. When I asked about it, he became evasive, claiming it was an old suit he'd forgotten about and found in the back of the closet. But I know every piece of clothing he owns, and I'd never seen this suit in my life. When I pointed this out, he got defensive, saying, "Maybe I just don't pay attention to his clothes. Why are you grilling me about a suit?" That should have been my first warning sign, but I let it go, not wanting to start a fight before his trip. Now, I'm kicking myself for not trusting my gut, which was screaming that something was wrong. But I talked myself out of it. The morning he left, I kissed him goodbye, told him to text me when he landed, and to have fun with his friends. He promised to check in and assured me not to worry. I thought maybe this trip would be good for both of us, as I could use a few days to myself too. Then, strange things started happening, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The first night he was supposedly there, he texted me around 11 p.m., saying they were all exhausted from traveling and going to bed early. This didn't sound like Eric and his college friends at all. Those guys usually party until sunrise when they get together. The second day, I tried calling him around lunchtime, and his phone went straight to voicemail. When I texted asking if everything was okay, he responded hours later, claiming they were at a pool party and his phone died. But the timestamp on his message showed he was active on WhatsApp about 20 minutes after I called, so his phone wasn't dead at all. The third night, I called him around 9 p.m. and he picked up, but he sounded odd, like he was trying to end the call quickly. I could hear music in the background, but it wasn't club or bar music. It sounded like restaurant music, maybe jazz or something fancy. When I asked where they were, he said they were at some sports bar watching the game, but there were no game sounds in the background, and the music didn't match. When I pointed that out, he got irritated, called me paranoid, and said he had to go because his friends were calling him. He hung up on me, which he never ever does. I sat there staring at my phone thinking, what just happened? That night, I couldn't sleep. Something felt so wrong, and I kept replaying all the little things that didn't add up. I remembered he left his MacBook at home because he said he wanted to disconnect from emails for a few days, which seemed reasonable at the time, but now I wondered if there was another reason. I opened his laptop and went through his messages. At first, everything seemed normal, just group chats with his friends, work stuff, and random things. But then I saw this conversation thread with someone saved as my wife, with a heart emoji. My blood ran cold because I'm his wife, and this wasn't my number. I started reading through the messages and felt sick to my stomach. It was all lovey-dovey stuff, talking about missing each other and eagerly anticipating seeing each other. Then I saw messages from about 2 weeks ago where she was asking if he'd booked the hotel yet, and he was confirming, sending her confirmation screenshots. She was talking about how excited she was for their romantic getaway and how she'd been shopping for lingerie. But here's the part that truly made me lose it. She started talking about the other woman, me, and how she felt bad that he had to deal with my nagging about money and job hunting. He was responding, saying that I didn't understand him like she did and that I'd become bitter and unsupportive. They were talking about me like I was some obstacle in their relationship, when I'm his actual wife who's been supporting him financially for months. I read through months of messages, and apparently, they met on OnlyFans, which explained where some of our money had been going. She started as his paid content creator, but then they developed feelings, and now she thought they were going to have some fairy tale future together. He'd been telling her that our marriage was basically over, and he was just waiting for the right time to leave me. The messages showed that he used the money I gave him for his Guise trip to book a romantic weekend with her at some fancy resort in Vegas. She kept calling herself his real wife and talking about how she couldn't wait until they didn't have to sneak around anymore. I sat there reading this, crying and shaking, feeling like the biggest fool in the world. But then the crying stopped, and I got angry. Really angry, because this man had been living in my house, spending my money, and eating my food while carrying on this whole secret relationship and making me feel crazy for asking basic questions about his whereabouts and activities. I screenshotted everything and sent it to myself. Then I did something I probably shouldn't have, but I didn't care. I used Find My iPhone on his Apple ID, since we share the same one for family sharing, and I could see exactly where his phone was. He wasn't at the hotel he told me he was staying at with his college friends. He was at the Bellagio, in a suite that cost more per night than I make in a week. I looked at his location, thinking about how he used my money to take another woman on a romantic vacation while lying to my face about it. Something inside me just snapped. I booked a flight to Vegas for the next morning. I didn't even think about it. I just did it. I wasn't going to sit at home and cry while he was living it up with his OnlyFans girlfriend on my dime. And I wasn't going to give him the satisfaction of a quiet divorce where he gets to play the victim and act like our marriage just didn't work out. I wanted to catch them in the act, embarrass them, and let everyone know what kind of man he truly is. Maybe that makes me petty or vindictive, but I didn't care anymore, because he burned down our marriage, and now I was going to burn down his little fantasy. The flight felt like the longest 3 hours of my life. I kept checking his location and taking screenshots, wanting proof of where he was and what he was doing. I could see he was moving around the hotel during the day, probably by the pool, or at restaurants, doing whatever romantic things they were doing with my money. I landed in Vegas around 4:40 near p.m. and took an Uber to the Bellagio. I sat in the lobby, trying to figure out my next move, refreshing his location. Finally, around 7:00 p.m., I saw he was at a fancy restaurant in the hotel. So I went to the hostess and told her I was meeting my husband for dinner, giving her his name. She checked the reservation and said, "Oh yes, Mr. and Mrs., his last name," and asked if I wanted to be seated. I couldn't believe she had already made a reservation using his last name, like she was already his wife. I told the hostess, "Yes, please seat me at their table." I followed her through the restaurant and saw them before they saw me, sitting at this romantic corner table with candles and wine. She was wearing a red dress, and he was wearing that expensive suit I found in his suitcase. They were holding hands across the table, laughing, and looking like the perfect couple, except he was married to me and spending my money. I walked right up to their table and said, "Hi, honey, sorry I'm late." The look on his face is something I will never forget, like he'd seen a ghost and was about to wet himself at the same time. She looked confused and asked who I was. I introduced myself as his wife, and she went pale, looking at him. He started stuttering, trying to say it wasn't what it looked like, which is the stupidest thing you can say when you're literally on a romantic dinner date with another woman, while your wife is at home thinking you're with your college friends. She started saying she had no idea he was married, and this was all news to her. But I pulled out my phone and showed her the screenshots of their messages where she literally called herself his wife and referred to me as the other woman and talked about how she couldn't wait for him to leave me. She shut up very quickly. By this point, we were making a scene, and other people in the restaurant were staring. Eric tried to get me to sit down and talk about this quietly, but I was way past quiet talking and told him he could take his quiet talking and shove it. I was loud enough that tables around us could hear, and I didn't care, because I wanted everyone to know what was happening. I started telling him exactly what I thought of him and his little girlfriend, and how he'd been spending my money on this romantic getaway while lying to me about job searching. He tried to interrupt me and tell me to calm down, which is the worst thing you can say to an angry woman. I told him not to tell me to calm down when he'd been cheating on me for months and using my hard-earned money to wine and dine his OnlyFans girlfriend. She tried to defend herself, saying she thought we were separated and he told her our marriage was over. I laughed and asked her if our marriage was over. Then why was he living in our house and sleeping in our bed and taking my money for this trip? She had no answer for that. The restaurant manager came over and asked if everything was okay. I told him everything was not okay, because my husband brought his mistress here for a romantic dinner using money he stole from me. Eric got embarrassed and tried to pull me aside, but I wasn't going anywhere. I slapped him right across the face in front of everyone and told him he was a lying, cheating piece of garbage. Then I grabbed the water glass from their table and threw it right in her face and told her she could have him because I was done. I pulled out the divorce papers that a lawyer friend had drawn up on my phone the night before and served them to him right there at the table. I told him he had 30 days to get out of my house and find somewhere else to live because our marriage was over. But I wasn't done yet. I started recording everything on my phone and sent the video to his mom, his sister, his best friend, and basically everyone in his family group chat. I captioned it, "This is what Eric has been doing with the money I've been giving him for his job search," with crying, laughing emojis. The whole restaurant was staring, and some people were filming too. Eric was trying to get me to stop, but it was too late because everyone already knew what kind of man he was. His OnlyFans girlfriend was crying, her makeup running, and she looked nothing like her filtered photos. I walked out of that restaurant feeling better than I've felt in months. I got an Uber back to the airport and caught the red-eye flight home. I was exhausted but also relieved because I finally did something instead of just sitting at home wondering what was wrong with me. Was I the jerk for doing all this? Update 1. I can't believe how much support I've received on my original post, and how many people are telling me I'm not the jerk, because I've been second-guessing myself ever since I got back from Vegas, wondering if I went too far with the public confrontation. But after reading all your comments, I feel a lot better about what I did. And I'm glad I trusted my instincts instead of handling this quietly like some people suggested. This man deserved to be exposed for what he really is. So anyway, Eric came home yesterday, and let me tell you, the look on his face when he saw all his stuff packed up in boxes on the front lawn was priceless. Yes, I changed the locks, like some of you suggested, because I'm not stupid. And I know he would have tried to come crawling back with some sob story about how sorry he is and how it didn't mean anything. He started banging on the door and yelling for me to let him in so we could talk about this like adults. I yelled back through the door that adults don't cheat on their spouses and spend their money on other women, so he can take his adult conversation and shove it. He was out there for about 2 hours, trying different tactics. First, he was angry and demanding that I let him in, because it's his house too, which is funny because his name isn't on the mortgage, and he hasn't contributed a single dollar to our household expenses in 8 months. So I told him to call a lawyer if he thinks he has any rights to my house. Then he switched to the begging and pleading routine, saying he made a mistake, and he loves me, and he'll do anything to fix this. He was crying and saying he was just confused and scared about being unemployed, and she took advantage of him when he was vulnerable. I almost felt bad for him for about half a second, until I remembered all those messages where he was talking about me to his OnlyFans girlfriend and calling me bitter and unsupportive. Then I remembered that he spent months planning this romantic getaway with her while lying to my face every single day. He tried to tell me that it wasn't serious and it was just fantasy, and he never meant for it to go this far. But I'd read their messages, and they were talking about their future together, and how she couldn't wait for him to leave me, so he could save his excuses for someone who didn't see the evidence. I told him through the door that I've already filed for divorce, and he needs to find somewhere else to stay because he's not welcome in my house anymore. He started crying harder and saying he'd quit OnlyFans and block her number and go to counseling, but it was too late for all that. He was begging me to at least let him come inside to get some clothes. Normally I would, because I'm not completely heartless, but I told him everything he needs is in those boxes on the lawn. Around 10 p.m., he finally gave up and called his brother to come pick him up. I watched from my bedroom window as they loaded his stuff into the truck, and he kept looking back at the house like he was expecting me to change my mind and run outside and forgive him. But I didn't, because I'm done being the understanding wife who makes excuses for his behavior and puts his needs before my own. I've finally learned that just because someone says they're sorry doesn't mean you have to accept their apology. The crazy part is, I actually feel relieved now that he's gone, like this weight has been lifted off my shoulders and I can breathe again. I'm realizing that I've been unhappy for a lot longer than I wanted to admit. Some people in the comments asked if I felt bad about humiliating her too. And honestly, no, I don't. She knew he was married, and she participated in spending my money, and she called me the other woman, like I was the one interfering in their relationship. She made her choice when she decided to pursue a married man, and she can deal with the consequences of that choice. Maybe next time she'll think twice before getting involved with someone who's clearly lying about his situation. I'm meeting with my lawyer tomorrow to start the process of legally separating our finances, and I've already changed all my passwords and removed him from my bank accounts and credit cards. It's weird how quickly your life can change when you finally stop making excuses for someone and start putting yourself first. I wish I had done this months ago instead of convincing myself that I was being paranoid or unreasonable. Thanks again for all the support. It really means a lot to have random strangers on the internet validate that I'm not crazy, and I didn't deserve to be treated like this. Final update. I know I said the last update was final, but I had to come back and share this because it's just too perfect, and I think you guys will appreciate the karma of it all. So it's been about 7 months since everything went down, and my divorce was finalized last week. I'm officially free of Eric and all his nonsense, and I've been focusing on myself and my career. Honestly, I'm happier than I've been in years. I even got a promotion at work, partly because I've been able to focus all my energy on my job instead of worrying about what my unemployed husband was doing all day. I'm making more money now than Eric and I were making together when he was actually working. Anyway, yesterday I was grocery shopping and I ran into Eric's sister at the store. We've always gotten along pretty well, so I stopped to say hi and ask how she's doing. She looked really uncomfortable, and I could tell she didn't know whether to bring up the divorce or pretend it never happened. But then she told me something that made my whole day. Apparently, Eric is living in his mom's basement now because he still can't find a job, and he's been dealing with some consequences from that video I posted in the family group chat. Turns out his mom was so embarrassed and angry about what he did that. She made him delete all his social media accounts, and she's monitoring his internet usage like he's a teenager. She told the whole family that he's not welcome at any family gatherings until he gets his life together. His sister says he's been really depressed, and he keeps asking family members if they think there's any chance I'll take him back. They all tell him that he burned that bridge when he decided to cheat on me with an OnlyFans girl. But here's the best part. Remember Mary, the OnlyFans girlfriend who called me begging me to help her get him back? Well, apparently, she's been showing up at his mom's house trying to talk to him, and his mom called the police on her for harassment. His sister says it's been really embarrassing for the whole family because Mary keeps commenting on their Facebook posts asking them to convince Eric to talk to her. She's been sending friend requests to all his relatives trying to get information about where he is and what he's doing. Eric has been trying to find work, but every time he gets to the interview stage, something goes wrong. His sister thinks it's because employers are Googling him and finding Mary's social media posts about their relationship and the drama surrounding their breakup. She says he's been talking about moving to a different state to start over, but he can't afford to move because he doesn't have any money saved and no one will hire him. So he's stuck living with his mom and dealing with his crazy ex-girlfriend, stalking him. I almost feel bad for him. Anyway, I just wanted to share this update because it shows that karma is real, and people who treat others badly usually end up facing consequences eventually, even if it takes a while. I'm doing great, and I'm excited about my future. I hope Eric and Mary figure out their mess, but that's not my problem anymore. Thanks again to everyone who supported me through this mess. You guys helped me realize that I deserved better and gave me the courage to actually do something about it instead of just accepting being treated badly.